guys, so today me and my friends will explain about evolution of seed plants full adaptation to land. So this topic will focus to seed plants. Seed plants are vascular plants that use seed during the dispersal stage of life cycle. Seed contain a sporophyte embryo and storefoot with protective seed coat. With storefoot and seed coat, this allows embryo to survive during periods of dormancy. As you can see here, there is a seed coat, outer layer for seed, and inside the seed there is storefoot. So what the function of storefoot? Storefoot is a source of nutrients for the growing weakling when seed germinates. So there is two types of seed plants. First is gymnosperm and secondly is angiosperm. Gymnosperm have four living types of gymnosperm. First is conifers, cycads, ginkgos, and genotophytes. So let's go one by one. So conifers, why the name is conifers? Because the plant that bear cones. But other gymnosperm phyla also are cone bearing. The common example for conifers is pine tree. In the life cycle of the pine, the sporophyte is dominant. Pollen grains are wind blown and the seed is wet dispersed. So I will explain what the meaning for this sentence later. The conifers is monoecious. It means in single plant, they will carry both reproductive structure, female and male reproductive structure. So, let's go see the life cycle of conifers. I will explain about the male pollen cone and we will go to the female reproductive. So, the pollen cone usually is small and developed near the tips and of lower branch. A pollen cone has two pollen sacs, live on underside of each scale. Within pollen sacs, meiosis will produce 4 microspore. Each microspore will become pollen grain that has 2 wings and carried by wind. Then it will become mature male gametophytes. Pollen tube digests way toward female gametophyte and discharge 2 non-flagellated sperm. So let's go to the female reproductive. The seed cone is larger than the pollen cone and located near the tips of higher branch. The seed cone has 2 ovals, lie on upper surface of each scale. Within an oval, it will meiosis and produce 4 megaspore, but only one will survive. The one that survives will undergo mitosis and develop into the mature female gametophyte and have 2 to 6 archegonia. Each of them contain large egg lying near oval opening. And the last step is the oval will mature and become the seed composed of the embryo, reserve food, and seed coat. The cycle complete when sporophyte embryo develop into pine tree. So the second one will go to cycads. Cycads are native to tropical and subtropical forests and commonly used in landscaping. Cycads resemble palms or fern depending on their height. It can reach a height 15 to 18 meters in some species. Cycads have pollen and seed cone on separate plant. The cone grows at the top of stem and can be longer than a meter and weight for 40 kg. So let's go to the life cycle of cycads. The life cycle of cycad is exhibited the life cycle of a gymnosperm except they are pollinated by insect. The pollen tube bursts in the vicinity of the archegonium. Multiglated sperm will swim to reach an egg. Third one is ginkgos. Ginkgos are represented by ginkgo biloba. You can see the picture of ginkgo biloba in here. Ginkgos are dioecious, so like conifers is monoecious, like ginkgos is dioecious. Dioecious is what? Single plant but produce either male or female reproductive. It can only choose one. The fleshy seed which ripen given of such a full odor that male tree are usually preferred for planting. The pollen tube of ginkgo bursts to release multi-flagellated sperm that swim to the egg produced by the female gametophyte that located within an oval. The last but not least is genotophyte. Genotophyte represented by three living genera: Gnetum, Ephedra, and Welwitschia. In all genotophyte, xylem is structured similarly. None of them have archegonia and strobili cones similar construction. Some genotophyte species produce nectar. So let's go one by one and see their characteristic of three living genera. The first one is Gnetum. The characteristic of it is occur in tropics, consists of tree and climbing vines. As you can see here, there is a climbing vines and leathery leaves. Second one is Ephedra. Ephedra occurs only in southwestern North America and Southeast Asia. Ephedra is shrub and scale-like leaves. And the last one is Welwitschia, that living in the desert of southwestern Africa, has two enormous and straight-like leaves. So that's all from me for explaining about gymnosperm. I will pass to Nabil to explain about angiosperm. So thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I will continue with the next topic, that's it, angiosperm. First thing first, what we need to know what is angiosperm. It comes from angion, that's it, vessel, and sperma for seed. And angiosperm are flowering plant. Habitats from freshwater to desert, and from the rigid north to the torrid tropics. Size tiny, almost microscopic duckweed, due to eucalyptus tree. Type all hardwood trees of temperate deciduous forests, all the broadleaf evergreen trees of tropical forests, all the herbaceous non-woody plants, and most garden plants are flowering plants. Advantages: angiosperm provide us with clothing, food that staple of the human diet, medicine, and other commercially product. Structure: the flowering plants are called angiosperm because they are ovule. Unlike those gymnosperms are always enclosed within diploid tissue. Angio, that's vessel, refer to the ovary in Greek derivation. Ovary will develop.
Now, let's move on to flowering plant cycle. Now, a flowering plant are heterophorous, which means they produce two types of spore. One is megaspore, another one is microspore. So, megaspore is located in the ovule, which is within an ovary, our carpel, in a flower, and it will develop into an egg-bearing female gametophyte. We also call it as an embryo sac. So, an embryo sac will have 7 cells, and out of it, one cell will become the egg, and another 2 will be polar nuclei. So, for microspore, it is produced in the anthers, which is also the place where pollen grains are made. And when it matures, it becomes a male gametophyte with sperm. The mature gametophyte will have 3 cells. So one is the tube cell, and the other 2 are the sperm cell, which is the male gamete. One difference between the megasporangia and the microsporangia is, first, the megasporangia, it develops into a megaspore, which is a female gamete. So these gametes are usually round and they are large. And megasporangia is also called the ovule in a plant. So for microsporangia, it develops into a male gamete, which is called a microspores. and it's called the anther, the structure, and they are small and motile. As we can see from the structure, the ovule, which is the megasporangia, lies in the ovary in the carpel. The carpel is also called as gynoecium. And as for the microsporangia, the structure is called as the anther, and we can find it in the stamen. It's also the place where pollen grains are made. So let's look into the development of the female and male gametophyte. For female gametophyte, as you can see in this diagram, the megaspore mother cell will undergo meiosis, so they'll produce 4 megaspore in the ovule. Out of 4, 3 of it will degenerate, and 1 will become the embryo sac. And for male gametophyte, the microspore mother cell will undergo meiosis as well, and they'll produce 4 microspore in the pollen sac of the anther. These microspores will develop into the male gametophyte, or we also know it as the pollen grain. For the sporophyte, it has development in which pollination happens. And what happens during pollination? The pollen grain will germinate and it produces a pollen tube that will grow down the style towards the ovary, and it penetrates the ovule. And in this, double fertilization will occur. Why is it called that way? Because one sperm male gametophyte will fertilize the egg, and the other sperm cell will combine with the polar nuclei, resulting in a 3N endosperm. For the first fertilization, it results in a diplot zygote. As for the ovule, it will develop into a seed, and the ovary will develop into a fruit. So as a wrap up from the flowering cycle, what you should know is that the flower parts that are involved in the reproduction are the stamen and the carpel. So we will have double fertilization. As I mentioned before, the one sperm will unite with the egg cell and the other one will unite with the polar nuclei, and it forms a triplot endosperm nucleus. So, and as mentioned before, the ovule becomes a seed and the ovary becomes a fruit. The ovule contains an embryo and its stored food enclosed within the seed coat. Endosperm in some seed is absorbed by a cotyledon, whereas in other seeds, the endosperm is digested as the seed matures. In conclusion, we have learned the characteristic of seed plant, identified different groups of gymnosperm, get a glimpse of what angiosperm is, and through that we have differentiate monocot and eudicote, and lastly we have covered the flowering plant life cycle. And that is the end for our topic today. Thank you.